Jessica Stutzman, and welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. 76% of Erie County residents live within a coastal zone municipality. This concentrated population places intense pressure on the Lake Erie ecosystem. Non-point source pollution, shoreline erosion, and biodiversity losses are only a few of the problems the area is facing. As human impacts have grown, water quality, wildlife habitat, and coastal wetland acreage have continued to be threatened. Balancing coastal land use with conservation of water-related resources is the goal of Pennsylvania's Coastal Zone Management Program. With us today from the Erie County Department of Planning and Community Development is Joy Knapp, the Environment and Recreation Planning Program Administrator, to show homeowners the do's and don'ts of coastal zone and bluff management. Joy, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jessica. I'm
well,
excited.
I just mentioned a really interesting statistic that I know we'll get to later, but what I want our viewers to know is what is Coastal Resource Management and what is the program?
Well, the Coastal Resource Management Program, the CRM, it actually began in 1980. It was approved and funded by NOAA, which is federal, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And my work with the Department of Planning, we work in partnership with the Pennsylvania DEP, the statewide DEP. So this program has been active since 1980, and like you said, the Erie County has a coastline from Ohio to New York. So we're pretty special in that respect. And the large portion of the Coastal Resource Management Program is bluff management and bluff monitoring. And as you said, it might be surprising that 76% of Erie County residents do live within a coastal municipality.
And how many miles from the Ohio line to the New York line? How many miles is that?
About 71 miles.
That's a lot.
Of coastline. It is, yes.
Okay.
And we actively monitor that coastline.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And very, very important to everybody in the watershed. How does the DEP and the Erie County Department of Planning provide technical assistance and guidance to municipalities?
Okay, well, I work with the Northwest Region Office here in Western Pennsylvania, as well as the Central Office in Harrisburg. And we actively monitor the coastal zone. We actively monitor Bluff Recession. And one of the ways that we do that is with active control point monitoring. And what that means is along the 70 miles or 71 miles of coastline, we have every 0.3 of a mile, we have about 130 total control points. Some are on game lands, private property, but we monitor bluff recession. Mm-hmm. So that means we will go out into the field and we will actively monitor and measure. It's a 4-year cycle, but we actively monitor and measure how active the bluff is with erosion. We also do every spring, before the leaves come on the trees, we do what we call the flyover, and that is we work with the Pennsylvania State Police and the DEP staff, Shelby Clark and I. We actually did this in mid-September. We took a helicopter ride. Wow. Yes, we did. Took a helicopter ride from state line to state line to get truly a bird's eye view of any construction on the bluff and very active bluff erosion. Mm-hmm. And that's a really great way to visualize and see kind of how active is our bluff. What are the activities taking place there? And similarly, in the summer, we have what we call our boat days, where we will take the municipal officials, the code enforcement officers, the zoning officers, and the DEP has a boat, and we will go again from state line to state line along the coast of Lake Erie. In the boat, we take photo documentation for any activity, erosion activity or construction activity along the coastline. And we also work with our municipalities. They also have a very important job. They do permitting for construction activities on the bluff, so we help our municipalities with funding allocations for their permitting efforts, for their inspection efforts, and in return they do have reporting that they have to do to us at the DEP as well as the county planning. So we really have a great relationship with our coastal municipalities, with our township supervisors and our zoning officers and code enforcement officers, which is great.
And Millcreek Township, we know, of course, is on the coast, but there are so many more people that are affected, even if you don't live on the coast.
Right, exactly. And that's one thing that I want to make mention is, yes, we're talking about coastal erosion, and yes, 76% of Erie County residents live in a coastal municipality. But even if you don't live on the lakeshore, if you have, if Millcreek or Walnut Creek is in your backyard, we all live within the Lake Erie watershed, and we all have impacts to Lake Erie and to our coastal zone. So, even if you don't live on the bluffs, we all live within a watershed, a sub-watershed within the Lake Erie watershed. So we all have a responsibility to take care of our coastal zone.
I have to tell you, I think getting in a helicopter to do that flyover sounds terrifying. I don't know how you do it.
It absolutely was not. It is actually fascinating.
Okay.
It is actually fascinating, and the state police pilots, they make you feel very comfortable before you take off. And believe it or not, it takes only about an hour. It does not take long to cover coast to coast. But no, it is so interesting to have that bird's eye view, to see, because there is some pretty severe erosion taking place, and there's some pretty interesting and impressive activity. So no, it was absolutely amazing and exhilarating. It was fun.
It would take an hour just to get me off the ground, I think.
I think you'd enjoy yourself, Jessica.
So funding support of local projects is through an annual competitive grant process.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about this, because of course trying to repair any bluff recession is going to be extremely expensive.
Yes, and so the grant program, we fund our municipalities, so we don't have funding support for private property owners per se, but we work with our municipalities. We work with 501c3, we work with nonprofits, universities. The projects that we support through the program, it is competitive, but they can cover everything from education, research, project planning, design work, land acquisition. Public access is very important to the coastal program, so we've funded public access. We've funded research projects on bat migration. We funded projects on harmful algal bloom research. Strengthening intergovernmental coordination, working with each other, with municipalities. We're working to protect wetlands. So the grant program, it's annual. It opens. It's mid-August to mid-October. That's when the grant program opens. The grant round opens every year. And that is one of the ways that I help provide at the county level. I help provide with technical assistance from helping an entity submit an application to helping them submit their final report. We help our grantees through every step of the process.
Well, and I'm sure that's very, very helpful, because grants can be daunting, and especially if you're asking for large sums of money.
Right.
Again, the application, you get through that process, then you have to implement the project, and then you have to report back to your grant funder. Right. And so all of that is there are a lot of details involved, and you want to make sure that you've covered everything. When you're closing out your grant, you want to make sure that everything that you put in your application has been covered during the closeout. So.
Absolutely. Scope of work, everything from I can help them with submitting invoicing for reimbursement, help them with paperwork, help them with with anything that they might need throughout the process. So,
and tell me, how do you participate with the International Coastal Cleanup? Because we have had a lot of talks on this particular show about the great work of that particular cleanup, and how are you involved in it?
Well, again, with the coastal program, the Pennsylvania DEP, the Northwest Region Office, as you know, the International Coastal Cleanup is a worldwide phenomenon. And so again, it is one way that the County Planning Office, department, my work through the coastal program, we partner with the DEP as well as a fantastic committee to help clean up and protect and bring awareness to why it is so important to clean up and protect our coastal zone. And so it's a great effort, great organizational effort. It takes an army of volunteers, but it is absolutely wonderful. So again, we work in partnership with the DEP to kind of shepherd shepherd the International Coastal Cleanup and bring awareness to protecting our coastal zone.
And again, I know you and I have worked closely with the International Coastal ICC program, and we really, really appreciate all the help you give to that. Joy, how do you respond to property owners when they ask, I want to take care of my property, but I'm really not sure what to do.
Right, and we get that a lot. And again, I work with the Northwest Regional Office, the coastal program. I work with Shelby Clark, and she has an office at the Tom Ridge Environmental Center, and she and I work very well together. Oftentimes, a property owner or a municipality will contact one of us, and so we will work with property owners if they're having like active erosion on their property, whether it be on the coast, in the coastal zone, or if they have stream bank stabilization. So what we do is we make a lot of friends. We do a lot of site visits, a lot of home visits. We play with a lot of dogs, and it's wonderful. So we schedule the site visit. We visit with them in their home. For observation. Obviously, we take a lot of photos, photo documentation, and we kind of look to see what are the questions that they have, what are the issues that they're having, and we can offer them some technical assistance and some guidance, maybe some best management practices, for what they can do, because everyone wants to take care of their property. So we help them with best management practices. What can you do on your property? And if you do live within a stream area, it may not be on the coastal zone, but if you live in a stream area, then we get the Erie County Conservation District involved as well. And they're an absolute wonderful wealth of knowledge, and they'll meet with us out in the field as well. But what I want to show you is this is a fantastic resource. This is the BMP guide, the Vegetative Best Management Practice Guide for homeowners, and we have a ton of these. If anyone is interested, I can certainly make sure you get those. But this is like the cookbook. This tells you types of plants, do's and don'ts, gives you a great history and background. Kind of how does the coastal zone work? So
sure. And do you pass this out at your visit, or should people read this ahead of time prior to your visit?
We pass them out at visits. I do a lot of public events where we have them, for public tabling events like the Home and Garden Expo. But anyone that wants a copy of this, I am happy to share that with them.
And you probably have this memorized inside and out.
It's a great resource, and it really is. It's written so that anyone. This is a great resource for any homeowner. So yeah,
less like a textbook and more of a hands-on how-to guide.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And why is it so important? Again, we keep talking about that it is important, but let's really give the why behind stormwater management on our properties. And again, especially, specifically within the coastal zone and the bluff erosion areas. Why is stormwater management so important?
Well, it's important because, again, we are monitoring active erosion, and the coastal zone, we call it, it's a dynamic and ever-changing landscape. It's Mother Nature. You can't predict precipitation, lake levels, wind, and so there are a lot of things that are taking place that contribute to bluff erosion. And as we monitor that, and we work with property owners to help to manage that. Like I said, we all live in a watershed, right? We all are connected. We're all connected to the coastal zone, and so we all live within a sub-watershed. So any activity that we do in the sub-watershed, that's going to potentially contribute to the sedimentation, which is erosion of soil sediment, and which is caused by erosion, by water, wind, and it ultimately is going to reach the coastal zone. Ultimately, it's going to reach Lake Erie. So what you do on your property, how you manage the stormwater on your property is very important, and it does have an impact. And we can talk about ways that, we'll talk more about very specific ways, what to be aware of.
Right. And again, just talking about the watersheds, if someone doesn't know what a watershed is, what does that term mean?
Your watershed is, watersheds don't follow political boundaries, okay? And again, this map kind of illustrates the area that contributes, so Walnut Creek. Walnut Creek, just for an example, isn't just Walnut Creek. There is an area, a geologic or topographic area that drains into Walnut Creek. So there is a specific area that is delineated. We know what areas contribute to that watershed. So even if you live, a certain amount of distance away from Walnut Creek or Mill Creek, water finds its own way. So that watershed is kind of the area that contributes. I don't want to call it the basin, but it's the bowl or the basin that contributes to that specific water feature.
Okay.
If that makes better sense.
Sure, absolutely.
It's the area that contributes to that.
And when you said water finds a way, do you mean again over top of the land, or do you mean through the groundwater as well?
Both. That's a great question.
Okay.
Both. Water will find its way. There's surface water and groundwater, as we'll see. Groundwater does have a significant part to play in coastal resource management, and it's not just water that's flowing over the top of the ground that's contributing to the erosion, but it's also groundwater that's flowing, and depending upon the sediment layers, the sand layer, the clay layer. Groundwater, it will find a way. It will find a way.
And just to reference back to this map, I want to show these, again, the top portion of the map is highlighted with blue areas, and then the bottom portion is highlighted in green. Yes. What does that mean?
Well, this is Erie County. Okay, so Erie County is actually split almost 50-50, 49 to 51%. The area in green to the south, all of that is the French Creek watershed. So imagine a break. Everything in the green is flowing south to ultimately the Mississippi River. Everything in blue and purple is flowing north, ultimately to Lake Erie.
Okay.
And and this is Erie County, so essentially Erie County is split in half. So a lot of folks don't realize that.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because again, I'm a very visual person, and so to see the break, I can definitely tell, again, something with the topography, something geologically is going on there. So I appreciate that. How can homeowners slow the erosion in their particular watershed and protect their property in the coastal zone areas?
Okay, so you want to think about the water on your property. You want to think about your roof. You want to think about your downspouts, your gutters. Where is that water going? Is it daylighting on the ground? In what direction is it pointing? Is it pointing downstream? Do you have a concrete driveway? Do you have a sump pump? Do you have a French drain? How are you managing water? How are you managing the water on your property? How are you managing the drainage? There are different best management practices, and again, we have a great resource. If you do live in the coastal zone, if you do live near a bluff face or stream like stream bank or ravine, you kind of want to make sure that you are not directing your downspouts and that running surface water directly washing down over the bluff crest. Okay. That running water can actively erode any loose soil or gravel. So we always tell people when we make site visits, okay, well, let's see where your stormwater is directed. You don't want it to go into the backyard if the property slopes. You don't want to direct it down over the bluff face where it can potentially erode the bluff face. Same thing with if they have a French drain in the backyard, that type of thing. So where's your water going? How are you directing your stormwater? Also, if you're washing your car, are you washing your car on the concrete driveway where we could sheet and flow, or are you pulling your car into the grass, into the lawn, and washing your car so that water can absorb into the ground rather than sheeting off and running off? Are you using a hose to wash off your deck or your patio or your sidewalk or your driveway, or is that's actively running water? Right. Where is that going? Do you have a sprinkler system? Are you watering your lawn? How are you using water on your property? Where's that water going? Is it a potential cause for erosion? Another thing that we can do to help protect their property is plants. Stabilize your property. Trees and plants, they drink a lot of water. And so stabilizing vegetation. Plus, if you plant flowers and plants, sometimes that's less of your yard you have to mow, right? So that's the other thing is, you can plant stabilizing vegetation. Right. If you have a bank or, along a stream bank, or if you do live on the bluff face, we can talk about kind of, what to do and why. And again, this document is a fantastic document. It's a resource for what types of plants, what are the best stabilizing vegetation that you can use. And Joy, what you were describing, again, just washing your car, reminds me of an image I've seen that we've put on the back of the Millcreek Township calendar, and it's somebody washing their car, which appears to be right in Lake Erie. And so when they're using the soap suds or the chemicals or whatnot, again, you're actually maybe in your driveway, but that's as good as perhaps washing your car in Lake Erie. It's true, because again, we all live in the watershed, in some watershed or a sub-watershed, so all of our water, it's going somewhere. It's going somewhere. So, you know, the oils, the grease, you know, all the chemicals, it all goes into the water system. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I don't know how many people actually wash their cars at home anymore in the driveway. But, you know, if that's what you do, there's a better best management practice. There's kind of a better way to do it.
So let's talk about those do's and don'ts.
Okay.
What are the homeowner do's and don'ts? What should I be doing on my property? Because I have a few things that I do and probably some areas that I could improve myself. So let's go through some of those.
Okay, wonderful. And again, the do's and don'ts are also referenced in the best management practice. So basically, basically there are three things. You want to keep the plants. Keep the plants. You want to plant native and local plants.
Okay.
Native,
and why
local?
Plants. We always touch on that, but why local?
Right. Well, because you don't want, you know, people talk about Phragmites. That's a beautiful grass. It's an invasive species, and it will take over.
Okay.
So you want local plants that are native to Pennsylvania. And there are lots of easy ways to find these plants. I mean, we have the master gardeners. We have annual spring plant sales. I know that the Go Erie Native or Go Native Erie, they have an annual plant sale. The Erie County Conservation District, they have an annual plant sale. So there are lots of opportunities and places to find. If you don't know what your local native plants are, there's a lot of resources out there. And I'm a big fan of perennials. I'm a big fan of things that just come back year after year.
Me too.
That I don't have to worry about. Because I'm lazy and I just want my hostas to come up and that type of thing. So, and actually we're working on a specialized Bluff seed mix it's specifically targeted for stabilization because you want those roots, you want them to kind of hold onto that soil and grip that soil. If you have a good root stabilization, they're going to drink more water, and it's going to prevent erosion from running water. So it just holds that ground together.
Right, like little fingers, it holds it from eroding away.
It does. Yeah, we call that like root mass. It's like it's got that root system, that root mass.
Okay.
So yeah, you definitely want to keep the plants. And then you want to lose the water. So you want to direct the stormwater, like I just mentioned. You want to direct your stormwater and your downspouts away from the bluff face or away from the side of the bank or the creek if you happen to live on a bank or a creek. What we say with stormwater management is you want to slow it down, you want to spread it out, and you want to sink it.
Okay.
You want that stormwater to sink and absorb into the ground like it's supposed to. You want to spread it out, and you want to slow it down.
Okay.
And again, if you do live in an area of the county if you have a septic system, that's water that you're putting into the ground. Think about how much water, is your septic system maintained and in good condition, and how much water are you using? How much water are you using on a daily basis? And that is contributing to the groundwater on your property. And like we said, water will always find a way. So just manage, how much water are you using in your home. And thirdly, practice good housekeeping. If you live on the bluff crest or you live like near a stream or a ravine or a bank, if you're doing your lawn work or yard work, some people will throw lawn clippings or grasses or yard waste or leaves or pine cones. They just throw it down over the hill or down over the bank.
Out of sight, out of mind.
That's out of sight, out of mind, right. But actually, you think, oh, well, it's natural. You're actually hurting the bluff and you're actually contributing to erosion because you're adding weight to that bluff face. You're adding moisture. It kind of absorbs and holds that moisture, and it adds weight, and it actually can give a scouring effect. It can pull it down even further. Okay. If that makes sense. So it will act as a mulch. It will add weight, and it'll pull the sediment. If it's not stabilized, it can actually pull the bank down. Okay. If you have trees on your bluff face or your ravine or on a side yard with a slope, don't over trim your trees. There are certified arborists. There are people who know what they're doing. So you want to talk to our certified arborist to how to properly trim your trees. And we call it a no-mow zone or a grow zone. Basically, if you have a property that is right up against the bluff face or the bluff crest, or again along a stream bank or a ravine, don't mow right up to the edge because you are creating kind of. Again, we want to slow it, sink it, spread it. So you want to kind of create a grow zone or a no-mow zone so that those plants, that vegetation will kind of prevent or slow any of the water that's going to flow down over the bluff face. So, and it makes your yard look beautiful, and it's less yard that you have to mow.
Yes, it does make sense, and I don't want to take up too much of the show with my own story.
Sure,
we have
please.
a rain garden, so
good.
I'm sorry, not a rain garden, a rain barrel, in which we use on the garden. So hopefully, again, I know we're one household, but hopefully, again, that helps.
Right.
Joy, we're just about out of time, but just one thing again I want to cover. If I want a view of the lake, if I live right on the lake and I want a view of the lake, why shouldn't I cut my trees?
Okay, well, trees drink a lot of water. Trees are thirsty, and they help manage the flow of groundwater. We talk about what's the water flowing over, ground surface water. How do you direct your stormwater? And that's fantastic that you have a rain barrel. You are collecting that water and you are using it for another purpose. But the groundwater that we can't see that's flowing, trees drink that. Their root system, it holds the soil in place. It helps stabilize stream banks. It helps stabilize ravines and the bluff crest. Trees can get a little, sometimes trees can get a little heavy and they can add weight to the bluff, but for the most part, you want the trees there. You can trim them, but you really want the trees there. You want those roots to hold your bluff in place. You want them to drink that water, and they're beautiful, and we need our trees.
They are beautiful.
Yes.
Joy, I want to thank you so much. Just quickly, how can someone reach you?
You can reach me at the Erie County Department of Planning. You can also, I can connect you with Shelby Clark of the DEP. She's the Northwest Regional Office, Coastal Resource Management. She's my team member, but you can contact me at the Planning Department, and I'd be happy. I talk with property owners all the time, so I would love to speak with any Millcreek Township resident.
Joy, thank you so much for coming to talk with us about this. This is so important, again, to all of Erie County.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for having me.
Thank you. Viewers, again, we have learned so much today about coastal zone management, bluff recession, why it's so important to have trees on your property, plants on your property, and to manage properly the stormwater that's flowing onto your property and ultimately going to run off into Lake Erie. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Joy. She is a wealth of knowledge, as is the document she provided in the show today. I want to thank you for tuning into the Millcreek Government Channel, and until next time, have a great day.